I want to bring in Senator James Risch, Chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee. Sir, good morning to you and welcome back to America's Newsroom. What is the appropriate response when you consider it was an act against Saudi Arabia, but clearly we're involved in this rather thickly, sir?
You know, Bill, this is one of those things that you can't look the other way. This was as has been pointed out, this was an act of war, a clear act of war. The vehicles that were used were war vehicles, and something's going to have to be done. Look, I've seen the same intelligence that the president and everyone else has seen. There's no question who did this. I think that point is behind us. The question now is, where do we go from here? This president does not want to go to war. He's not a war kind of a person. I was in the room when he made the decision, the difficult decision regarding when Iran shot down our drone last time. He wrestles with these in a very, very serious way. Doesn't want to do this, but as he has pointed out, sometimes you wind up having to do stuff you don't want to do, and the Iranians keep pushing in that regard. This was a serious act of pushing the envelope about as far as it can be pushed without having kinetic response.
You say you were in the room when the drone was hit.
No, excuse me, when the decision was made regarding the response to the drone.
Okay, now here's what Politico writes about that. John Bolton was in New York this week. I'll read the quote in the paragraph. It says, during Wednesday's luncheon, Bolton said the planned response had gone through the full process. Everybody in the White House had agreed on the retaliatory strike, but, quote, a high authority at the very last minute, without telling anyone, decided not to do it, Bolton complained. I assume that to be the commander-in-chief.
No question about that. Look, the way this was done is the president had a number of us from the Hill up. In the room he had his national security advisor, he had the CIA, he had the chief, the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, he had the Secretary of State in the room. He went around the room, asked each of us what we thought, what the response should be. He played devil's advocate. He was very serious about it. He was very somber about it. And look, this is a man who understands the consequences of what he has to do as a commander-in-chief.
Part of the point that Bolton makes, though, is that we didn't take action then, and that is part of the reason why Iran continues to act out. I don't know if you necessarily disagree with that. I think it comes back to a question as to whether or not, is this a question for us to respond to, or is it Saudi Arabia? Here's what Jack Keane told Martha about this last night. Here, just watch here, the general.
It is clearly an egregious act of war attacking the world's economy. I don't know where the Pentagon is, but I've heard some things that concern me. They may be steering and emphasizing the risk involved too much, which normally steers a decision maker to a weaker response, and we wind up not deterring.
I want to get your feeling on that. And Mike Pompeo, he said, I'm confident in New York, which is next week, we'll talk a lot about this and what the Saudis will do. That suggests there's a judicious process here before taking action, and that the action could take a week or 10 days from now. Is that okay with you?
Well, of course it's okay with me. I think when you're talking about kinetic action, it needs to be well thought out, short of being in the heat of battle. Look, this event occurred. It's now over. It needs to be analyzed. And I think all of these arguments have got to be taken into effect. That part of the world, particularly the Iranians, they understand a kinetic response. And certainly that's on the table, as the president said. And we're going to take into consideration our allies' feelings on it and all of the consequences that come with this. Look, when these things start, they're really easy to start. They're not so easy to unwind, as we've learned 18 years ago from Afghanistan. So you have to be really careful about getting into this. But the Iranians are notorious for making bad judgments, for miscalculating. And the real danger here is a miscalculation on the part of the Iranians, which give us no choice but to go in fully loaded.
Word from Tehran today is that they'll consider a response to be at war. Last comment on that, Senator.
Well, look, they are doing things which are bad. They're doing things which indicate a lack of judgment. They're pushing the envelope. They are notorious for miscalculating.
Senator, thank you. Heavy
Bill, thank
decisions
you.
to be weighed. I hope you come back, sir. James Risch,
Thank
the
you, Bill.
Republican from Idaho, with us today from the Hill. Thank you.